Hi everyone, and welcome to F-Bomb Friday. I am your host, Tracy Preston, along with my husband, Todd. Hey, hun.
Hey, baby.
Are you ready?
I am ready.
Let's hit it. On today's show, we will be talking about, wait for it, the Lake Michigan Triangle. Most people have heard of the Bermuda Triangle, but have you ever heard of the Lake Michigan Triangle? According to modern legends, the Lake Michigan Triangle is an area of Lake Michigan where numerous shipwrecks, plane crashes, and disappearances have occurred under unexplained circumstances. Allegedly, UFOs, unidentified flying objects, have been witnessed in the area as well. The frequency of the shipwrecks, plane crashes, and disappearances were first written about in the book titled The Great Lakes Triangle by author J. Gorley in 1977. The triangle stretches from Ludington, Michigan to Manitowoc, Wisconsin, to Benton Harbor, Michigan, and back again to Ludington. Some experts debate about the range and shape of the triangle. They argue that the area is more oblong and rectangle shape that possibly fills most or all of Lake Michigan. Here are some theories for the strange occurrences within the area of the Lake Michigan Triangle. The first theory we discussed in Season 5, Episode 9, here on F-Bomb, the 5 ghost ships of the Great Lakes. Many ship disappearances and shipwrecks were blamed on wind waves. Because of Lake Michigan's elongated shape and position, its shores run parallel and unimpeded, which causes the formation of dangerous currents such as longshore tides and rip tides. On top of that, the north-south orientation combined with normal wind patterns can cause waves to reach incredible heights. An alternative common theory for the disappearances is magnetic anomalies created by magnetic declinations and deviations. Declination deals with the difference between true north and magnetic north, which vary depending on location. Generally, Lake Michigan deviates between 4 and 5 degrees westward. Deviations are miscalculations caused in compasses by local magnetic fields. For instance, if you're holding a compass near a magnetic object, the needle on the compass would point toward that object rather than magnetic north. Now, usually, this wouldn't be an issue in vehicles with other navigational instruments, but to inexperienced sailors and pilots, it could cause confusion with location and direction. More extraordinary theories suggest that the Lake Michigan Triangle is a negative energy vortex. Energy vortexes are the concept that certain locations emit sacred, powerful, and transformational energy. Even though vortexes are usually considered to promote positivity and healing, it's asserted that vortexes with negative energy, well, they exist as well. Their locations are supposedly sources of danger and hostility. Ley lines are areas that intersect ancient structures and landmarks and are often said to be causes of energy vortexes. Pursuant to ley line maps, one runs right down the center of Lake Michigan. Others accredit the triangle's alleged vortex to a prehistoric structure located under Lake Michigan in Grand Traverse Bay on the western shore of Michigan's Lower Peninsula. The 9,000-year-old structure was discovered by archaeologists in 2007 and is often referred to as the North American Stonehenge. Others suggest that the occurrences in the Lake Michigan Triangle are caused by aliens, highlighting the UFO sightings as evidence. So let's talk about some of the most notable occurrences in the Lake Michigan Triangle. The first case is one of the earliest known incidents and one that we discussed on Season 5, Episode 9, the 5 ghost ships of the Great Lakes. On September 18, 1679, Le Griffon and her crew docked at La Grande Bay, which is present-day Green Bay, loaded with 12,000 pounds of fur and set sail for Lake Erie. However, the sailing ship never reached her destination, and no remains of the ship has ever been found. Some have presumed the ship perished in a storm. Others theorize that the native indigenous people boarded the ship, murdered the crew, and set the vessel on fire. The ship's builder was convinced that the captain and crew sunk the ship and stole the furs, but there is no substantial evidence to suggest that any of these theories are true. On May 21st, 1891, the schooners Thomas Hume and Ruse Simmons set sail from port after delivering a shipment of lumber in Chicago. Both ships were supposed to return to the Hackley Hume lumber mill in Muskegon, Michigan, but the two ships encountered a squall, which is a sudden, sharp increase in wind speed lasting minutes, as opposed to a wind gust, which lasts only seconds. The crew of the Ruse Simmons returned to Chicago to wait out the storm. However, the Thomas Hume continued, and the ship and crew disappeared. It was widely accepted that the ship had succumbed to the storm. In 2006, the Thomas Hume was discovered 150 feet below the surface, almost completely intact and preserved by the cold waters. The Rosabelle was a 2-masted schooner that was used to transport materials to Benton Harbor, Michigan. Between 1875 and 1921, the ship was found capsized twice. Yeah, you heard that right. Twice capsized in Lake Michigan, both times with no signs of her crew. In 1875, a ferry crossing the lake discovered the schooner floating upside down. The crew of 10 men that set sail with the boat were never found. The ship was returned to her port in Milwaukee, where it remained in service. In October of 1921, the ship was ready to depart with a load of potatoes and lumber. However, Ed Johnson, the ship's captain, refused to board the schooner. His son later said that Johnson had a premonition that a disaster was going to happen. Unable to convince the captain to board the Rosabelle again, the crew left without him. Some days later, the schooner was found capsized again, and there were no signs of the crew. The stern of the ship was missing, which indicated there was a collision. However, no other ship had reported that there was an accident. The United States Coast Guard determined in their investigation that there was no collision. George R. Donner was the captain of the O.M. McFarland, a coal freighter. On April 28, 1937, Captain Donner's 58th birthday, The ship loaded nearly 10,000 tons of coal in Erie, PA, and then made its way west through the lakes, bound for Port Washington, Wisconsin. The captain had spent hours on the bridge directing the freighter through ice floes, which are large packs of floating ice. What's the difference between a floe and an iceberg?
Okay, so these are basically sheets of ice that are at least 2 meters in length. So these are huge
Flat pieces of
flat
ice?
pieces of ice. And when there's enough of them and they're not breaking up, they can cause a lot of damage to the hull of ships.
Gotcha. Okay. When the ship reached Lake Michigan, Donner retired to his cabin and instructed his crew to alert him when they were nearing their destination. 3 hours later, the second mate went to Donner's cabin to let the captain know they were approaching port. The door had been locked from the inside. The second mate assumed the captain had went to the galley for a snack, so he went to check, but no captain. The entire crew extensively searched the ship, but didn't find the captain. Eventually, they broke down the door to the captain's cabin, but guess what? No Donner. The captain was too large of a man to fit through the 2 portholes in his room, and he never showed any signs of depression or suicidal thoughts. Local ports and ships searched the waters for Donner, but he was never found or seen from again. On the evening of June 23, 1950, Northwest Airlines Flight 2501, with 55 passengers and 3 crew members, left New York City bound for Minneapolis. A pre-flight review of the weather revealed thunderstorms and squalls along the plane's route, but the crew was not greatly concerned. Due to turbulence, air traffic, storms, and low visual clarity, the captain requested to descend in altitude several times, and it was approved by Air Traffic Control, or ATC. The last radio transmission from Flight 2501 was the captain requesting to descend to 2,500 feet. Oh, that's awful low.
It's pretty low.
The ATC did not grant them clearance as another plane was departing Milwaukee at that time. Shortly after the last radio transmission, locals between South Haven and Benton Harbor reported hearing an aircraft flying low to the ground before witnessing a flash of light over the lake. Some say they heard an explosion, but it was difficult to determine if it was thunder that they may have heard. By midnight, radio operatives realized the plane was missing. The next day, the Coast Guard discovered an oil slick and debris on the lake about 18 miles northwest of Benton Harbor. In the following days, the search resulted in finding human remains such as ears, hands, bones, the pants of an 8-year-old boy, and pieces of the plane. No sizable amount of the plane was found. Most of the debris was no larger than a person's hand. Authorities could only assume the plane crashed into Lake Michigan, but had no assignable cause. One theory is the plane was struck by lightning, which caused the plane to explode. However, none of the debris recovered had burn marks. Conspiracy theorists suggest that the plane was taken by a UFO, as it was reported that 2 police officers had witnessed red lights hovering over the lake for 2 hours after the plane's disappearance. On July 3, 1998, Don Schaller, a veteran pilot, and his passenger Donovan Rodriguez, a flight instructor, were flying a 2-seat Aero L-39 Albatross. Now, this plane is a high-performance single-engine jet that is often used as a military trainer by Eastern European countries. Schaller was planning on participating in his first air show for the National Cherry Festival in Traverse City, Michigan. At approximately 6 p.m., Schaller radioed that he was 27 miles away from Cherry Capital Airport, which is where he departed from and was planning to return to. Soon after, flight controller noticed that his jet had vanished from radar and they were not able to make radio contact with Schaller. Coast Guard helicopters searched the area but found nothing. The following day, Canadian and American planes searched for miles on land and water and still found nothing. The search ended on July 9th. Michigan State Police believed the jet crashed into Lake Michigan, but the cause was never determined. The weather was calm and pleasant that day. Both men were experienced pilots, and the plane was considered to be in good condition. Also, the plane was equipped with parachutes and ejection seats. Later that year, underwater searches were conducted. Sonar uncovered a 30-foot-long object, but it was confirmed to be a rock formation. Another sonar search in 2008 discovered a possible plane approximately 450 feet below the surface near a boat that sunk in the 1950s. However, a dive could not be completed to confirm it was Schaller's plane, as the diver was not certified to dive past 400 feet. Well, I'll tell you right now, hon, I would not want to be diving in Lake Michigan.
That's pretty deep.
It's super deep, dark, and spooky, and cold.
And cold. And that's how a lot of these shipwrecks are preserved so well, because of the cold, still waters.
Well, and it gets colder the deeper you go anyway.
Yeah.
The temperature's got to be like being in a slushy.
Right. Yeah. You'd freeze to death like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Count me out.
Yeah. I'm not all about that. I'm cool with diving, but I think I want to be in some more water.
Why didn't they send down like a little
Submarine or something?
Yeah, some piece of equipment that could go diving down there.
Right. They
Take
should.
pictures.
They should. I mean, if they suspect that it could be his plane.
I mean, it was 2008 when they went back down there, right?
Right.
They have those things.
They have those things.
I mean, how important is it? Let's make a discovery.
Right. Think about this guy's family. Wouldn't they want to know?
Yeah, like his great grandkids.
Yeah. Hey, let's talk about Captain Johnson for a second.
Captain Johnson.
Yeah.
All right.
Talk about listening to your gut. He did not want to get on that schooner that had already been capsized once.
Twice. 3 times a capsize.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
He's like, hell no.
Yeah.
I got a tickle, and it's not happening.
Yeah. And everybody was like, wow, why is he being such a jerk?
Mm-hmm.
Well, because he trusted his gut instincts.
Yeah.
And it saved his life.
And it just is crazy to me that they would return a ship to open waters that had already capsized twice.
Yeah. You'd almost kind of wonder if it was like an engineering flaw.
Yeah, like
And
the top was too heavy.
A little heavy at the top or something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it had 2 masts, so maybe the 2 masts was more than the ship can handle.
Well, it was a schooner, right?
Right.
Schooners have multiple masts. No?
Yeah, but maybe a little bit more spread out to their size, though. I don't know.
Maybe they had heavy tips.
The tips.
Don't you do it.
And how about the North American Stonehenge?
I never heard of it.
You know what? I never heard of it either. And as I was doing research, I kept coming across these pictures. And you can find them on the Google net. And it's pretty cool. It does look like an underwater Stonehenge. But as I was doing the research, I'm like, get out of my way. I'm looking for information, and it never dawned on me. And then I got further into the story. That's what they were talking about. 9,000 years old. 9,000 years old. That's pretty old. You want to know how old?
9,000 years old?
I'll give you a clue. Stonehenge itself is only 5,000 years old.
Well, we just had this conversation, I think, on Round Robin when I was talking about some of the interesting things they're finding underwater, places that are older than Atlantis.
Right.
So, color me not surprised.
Yeah. And there's some pictures, the pictographs on some of these stones, too, of ancient elephants. I want to say mammoth, maybe. 9,000 years old, probably a mammoth, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of cool that they were able to get clear images of that, too.
So did they send a little submarine down for it? Or is this just from above?
It appeared that they had, it wasn't a submarine, but like a
little robot.
Like a diving robot camera.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to have to look that up.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
There's some mysteries down there.
And it's well, let me see. The location of it is in Traverse Bay. So that would be, I guess, where the pinky would be on the mitten, in between the pinky and the ring finger.
Yep.
Yep.
Wow, that's where it's at.
Yep.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Now we got to go to Grand Traverse Bay.
Right.
Add that to the long list of places we have to go.
Right.
Any other little interesting tidbits, babe?
Well, how about the UFOs? That kind of ties in with the UFO sightings of the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
So
I wouldn't be surprised if there's something down there.
Yeah.
I mean, I would think that a UFO can go right underwater.
Oh, yeah.
Who's to say there's not a crevasse?
A crevasse.
That it's, hanging out in.
Yeah. Well, let me see. Are UFOs reported to visit Stonehenge?
Are they?
I think they are. Maybe they're visiting ancient things down in our waters as well.
Well, let's talk about the energy.
Right.
Maybe there's an energy vortex down there. Maybe they use Stonehenge and, this new finding, this Michigan Stonehenge. Maybe it helps conduct energy.
Yeah, to fuel up their saucers.
Yeah, taking the energy right out of the basin of the lake. Interesting.
I'm curious though, because 9,000 years ago, was there water in the lake? There had, maybe not.
Glaciers.
Had they receded
When did the
yet?
glaciers recede? The glaciers that cover Michigan began to recede around 12,000 years ago, and this retreat occurred during the Valdez Advance, which was one of the final stages of the Wisconsin glacial period. Interesting.
That is interesting. I should have known that because I did talk about that in a previous episode.
Yeah, we did. It makes me even more nervous now to go out onto Lake Michigan.
Yeah.
Do you really want to go swimming in there anymore?
I love Lake Michigan.
I know, we'll do it.
But, here's an important point. Another reason why there's been so many shipwrecks in Lake Michigan, it's the most traveled. So that's why the data is skewed for having more, because Lake Superior doesn't have as much travel.
Sure it does.
No, it does not. Not as much as Lake Michigan.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
A very good story, hon.
Yeah. Well, it's a fun one.
Yeah, it was. Thanks.
Yep. You're welcome.
Well, you want to sign us out, hon?
I sure do. You better lock your doors. Better lock your windows. And you might want to check under your bed.
You just might have a UFO under there that popped out of Lake Michigan.
Right.
Well, thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. And we will see you on Malice Monday.
We'll see you on Monday.